Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies on this show. Don't we, Tim? Is that not in fact what we do?
Most of the time. Sometimes.
Most of the time. Come on.
I try to keep us on track.
I am putting everything I can into this intro. I'm trying to give it some pizzazz, some razzle dazzle, and I feel like I'm being hit with apathy. I do not appreciate it.
What do you want from me? I come from the slacker generation. We don't try.
We're going to talk about Hellbound Hellraiser 2, which is
I thought you were gonna say Hellboy at first, which I got excited.
Hey Tim, that like fell off a cliff in terms of box office. I don't know if you noticed this, but for its, I think its fourth weekend, it just wasn't in the top 20. It was just gone.
Right. That doesn't mean that it's out. Like it could still have legs. You never know.
Tim, it's an amputee. It is like the clinical definition of an amputee at the box office right now.
Just wait till word of mouth starts spreading, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Home video release, DVD sales gonna skyrocket. We're gonna get at least 5 sequels. You can quote me on that. I don't care.
Tell you. So Hellraiser 2, we started the Hellraiser franchise in October. That's right. It's taken us 7 months to finally get to the second Hellraiser. Well, at the time of recording, this may actually not go up for another little while because we have been so busy with new movies coming out on VOD or new movies in the theater that we have had a hard time getting to the sequels that have stacked up for a good while. So because of that, it's taken some time to get to some of these sequels. But here we are, Hellraiser 2. So we'll start spoiler free as we always do, and we will give you a warning before we go into spoilers somewhere in the middle. And yeah, so we both really loved Hellraiser, the first movie. We talked about that at length. You can find that review. We did that for the Octoberthon in 2018. So here's Hellraiser 2. I mean, how do you describe the plot? So yeah, Kirsty from the first movie is in a hospital because they think she's crazy, of course. And the movie, it largely revolves around an evil doctor who's obsessed with the puzzle boxes and the Cenobites and the mythology around things. And he tries to unlock doors and bring Julia back, who of course died in the first movie. Spoilers, I guess, for the first movie, but it's kind of hard to not talk about the first movie when we talk about the second movie. So he tries to bring her back out of the mattress she died on, because the mattress, as you know, much like the floorboards in the first movie, you can come back through once you're fed some blood. That's how this works. So I guess without further ado, Tim, do you enjoy Hellbound Hellraiser 2?
I do actually. Yeah, I like it quite a bit. Not as good as the first one. The first one is just a fantastic standalone movie. It didn't really need any sequels, but I mean, you know how this stuff goes when something's like a hit or whatever. You're obviously going to get some. But I think they do, a lot of interesting stuff in here. And there's some good gore and practical effects going on that I think it makes it fun to watch. So definitely don't love it as much as the first one, but I still think it's a pretty solid, fun sequel.
Okay. That's one interesting take. No, it's just funny. I remember not liking this very much, and I'd only seen it once. I'd seen it, before this time. I'd seen it once a long time ago, back when I was in high school. I think it's better than I thought it was back then. I don't think it's that great though. I think there's some interesting things that it does. I agree with that. I think the entire last chunk of the movie though, I think is a bit of a mess, and
yeah, it definitely goes into some crazy places, which I'm fine with, because I do like when things get a little big and crazy. But it is definitely weirder than you would expect.
Yes, and it's not the first one's not a weird movie. The first one's a very weird movie. I think one of the things we praised about the first movie is how unique it was, especially at the time it came out. Compared to everything else that the horror genre was doing. I think this one suffers a little bit because there's less restraint. I feel like it was hey, the first one was a hit, we can do crazier things, and I almost think in doing crazier things they made it more messy and less interesting, because I think There was an element of
yeah.
there was an element of mystery that came along with the mythology in the first movie about the Cenobites and how the puzzle box worked and how all these different things worked.
Yeah.
This one, like there's points in this where we're in hell and we're seeing giant, like, godlike entities in the sky, and like, it's just a bit too. It's almost like a fantasy movie. This one, in a lot of ways.
Which, like, now was Clive Barker involved in this? I forget, because I don't think he directed it.
No.
But did he write it?
Tony Randel directed it. Clive Barker did the story, but the screenplay was by Peter Atkins. So he was involved, but less so.
Okay, because I mean, it does track for, like, to me, it does still feel like a Barker story because he does like fantasy a lot, and I think like he has like a bunch of books like Aberrat and stuff, which I just read the first volume of, which was pretty good. But that's like a total fantasy book, and I think other stuff like Nightbreed and that kind of thing like has some kind of like fantasy elements to it. So I definitely get that. But yeah, maybe I don't know if it maybe would have worked a little bit better if he was a little more on board.
Yeah. So this director came from a visual effects background. He did do some
That makes sense.
sort of low budget direct-to-video stuff in the early 90s after he did this. He did a film called Children of the Night, which I've never heard of. He did do a film called Ticks, which I have seen, actually. So that stars Seth...
like...
No, Ticks, as in the bugs. Ticks.
Oh, Ticks.
Yes.
Okay.
Seth Green's in that. That's from 1993. I've seen that one, actually. In fact, I think I own that on Blu-ray, of all things. From there, he's done some TV, some direct-to-video stuff. He did Amityville 1992. It's About Time. I don't even know. Is that like a proper Amityville sequel?
I mean, wait, are you the one saying it's about time, or is that in the title?
No, that's the title. Amityville 1992. It's About Time.
Okay.
Jacob Sterling brings home a mysterious clock from the infamous Amityville house, not knowing that it is haunted by demonic spirits. So they're not actually in the Amityville house. They've just got an item from the Amityville house, which has carried the spookiness with it.
Okay. Not a lot of clock-based horror movies, so that could be interesting.
Could be interesting, he says. Sure. Still making movies, though. He made a movie in 2018.
Oh.
Called the Doggone Adventure, and it's a movie that stars two dogs.
Sounds pretty good.
Let's say this description. A telepathic dog enlists a group of fun-loving kids to help him solve a mystery. The canine detective leads the children down a road filled with action and adventure.
Oh. I mean, that's a lot of stuff I like. Might not be that bad.
Oh dear. So yes, Hellbound Hellraiser 2. So I think there's some good stuff in here. It does suffer from sequelitis. I think there's a lot of things where we're just doing this because we have to have a sequel, as opposed to because there's a great idea here. One of the main things that always bugs me about sequels is that it takes the character's fairly happy ending from the first movie. It's like, no, she's in a hospital because they think she's crazy because of what happened. It's like, I don't want to know this. I don't want to see this next part of her story.
You know what this actually kind of reminded me of that I never really put the two together? I don't know if this came out after or whatever, but it kind of gave me a little bit of a Dream Warriors vibe, just because like you have like it's taking place in like this mental hospital, and you're getting like a little bit more backstory on the Pinhead and the bites and stuff, like find out like what they were like when they were alive, and
and
I don't know. It's not like a direct comparison, but it gave me a little bit of feelings.
And there's even a character doesn't speak as well. Although I actually thought it was going to be more Dream Warriors like early on, because it felt like it was setting up characters in the hospital, mainly the girl who does the puzzles, Tiffany. But it doesn't really set up anyone else, and it just kind of like it's almost like it's going to do Dream Warriors, and then it kind of forgets. I think they actually came out the same year, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
I think they were both 88. Yeah.
Right.
Actually, no, maybe Dream Warriors was 87. They may have beat it by 1 year.
Okay, but I mean, yeah, it's not far enough apart.
No, yeah, it was 87 because Nightmare 5 came out in 89, so 4 had to come out in 88, so it did beat it by a year. They were churning those out in the 80s, churning them out. So no, like, some sequelitis is my main thing. Because even our boyfriend is just kind of like, there's like a one line saying he's been sent home. You don't have to worry about him.
Oh, right.
And then he never shows up to help later. He never comes back to check on her or visit her. Yeah, that's weird. And I almost think that he was supposed to be back, and they actually, like, because the actor for whatever reason didn't want to come back, they just sort of made this new character, this doctor who helps her, because he's just kind of there for the first chunk of the movie. He's barely introduced. He just wants to help her for some reason. He does overhear something that the villainous doctor says at one point, Chanrad, but is it Chanrad? Is that his name? Channard, yes. He overhears one thing that makes him suspicious, to be fair, but that's about it. I get the feeling that was supposed to be the boyfriend character, and then like they couldn't get him back, so I was like, oh, we'll just write a new character, and that was it.
Makes sense. I watched, there's a documentary, it's like a pretty long documentary that goes into the making of the first Hellraiser and the second one here. And I don't remember much from it, but there was some interesting stuff. I think the one tidbit though that I kind of remember is I think they were like gearing up to try to make Julia like the big bad of this franchise, which you kind of feel like that's what they're doing early on, and then it just seems like people responded to Pinhead so much they're like, we don't care about her. But it definitely seems like it is trying to set her up as like, the big villain.
It's kind of funny how little Pinhead's actually in even the first two movies.
Yeah.
Because he's only, he's got maybe 3 scenes in this movie. And some of them are notable scenes, they're enjoyable scenes, but he's not around for a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes to show you, like, when you have like a really cool design, like people just kind of latch onto it and that's what they want to see.
Yeah.
Like,
because like this movie, like, because obviously people joke about the sequels that we're going to get to, the later sequels where they weren't actually Hellraiser movies. They just put Pinhead in for a scene or two to make them feel like Hellraiser movies. But it's funny, even this one only has like 2 or 3 scenes of him. It's not like he was always a big factor. So I guess it's still in keeping from what the franchise was to begin with.
Yeah.
If you want to go that far, but so. Yeah, I don't want to talk about plot too much without spoilers because it is so sort of ingrained in the first movie, and then where it goes.
I would say maybe I don't know if it's so much the first half, but like the movie feels like it's kind of split into 2 parts where it feels like the first part is almost just kind of like redoing the first movie. Like it's the same kind of like plot beats really as to what we had in the first movie where like someone's coming back from the dead and they need to kind of suck people's like essence or whatever to come back to life, but then once the kind of the craziness starts happening of the second part, it feels like a totally different crazy movie.
And it's treated, obviously it's more truncated. It gets through it quicker because we know the stuff from the first movie. In fact, that's one of the weird things that I thought is you say that there's actually like an extended previously on, and it kind of does it twice.
Oh, right.
Because the movie opens with like it comes up just saying Hellraiser, right, and then it shows you some clips from the end of Hellraiser, and then we get the actual the opening titles for Hellraiser 2. But there's actually a scene where the doctor asks, "Okay, what happened to you, Kirsty?" And she basically recaps the first movie, and we see clips of the first movie as she's recapping it. And I thought, okay, this is clear for anyone who didn't see the first one. They want people to go to see the second one, so it's like, hey, don't worry, we've got you covered. There's a recap.
Yeah.
Which,
obviously this came out back in the day when it wasn't as easily to just go online and rent something for $2 or.
Yeah. So like, okay, fair enough. I feel like this movie would still be really hard to follow if you didn't know the first one that well. Like,
sure.
It's one thing having seen the first movie. It's another thing just getting this, just poured at you over the space of like a minute. Like it's hard to ingest all that information like that. But so it's just weird because
Pete, you weren't trying to eat this movie, were you?
Oh, Tim. So the first half's got that, but I kind of enjoyed the first half more because it was kind of like. It was basically just like your typical sequel doing the same thing again, but okay, right? Like it's not as good, but it's doing some similar beats. It's having some fun with it. And I like kind of the spin on it, of course, this time is that Julia is the one who's coming back as opposed to Frank, right? And that's fine. The second half, when it actually goes into like hell, and it's like it does get very Dream Warriors in the sense that it's very dream logic. Not a lot of things make sense. It's just kind of things are happening. It gets a bit messy for me, and I find it hard to like really love it. Even though there's definitely moments in that second half that I really like what it's doing, because okay, so I think this is the point where we'll say full spoilers. Full spoilers for Hellbound Hellraiser 2. Because the movie largely is about the creation of a new Cenobite and the revelation that all the Cenobites that we've already met used to be human beings in some capacity. Because one of the first scenes we see in the movie is, Pinhead's, real life person opening the box.
Spencer.
Elliot, there you go, you remember. It's kind of just on its own at first, but then as we go through the movie, it's about this doctor, this evil doctor who's obsessed, and he's like sacrificing like his patients to like, because the first person who he sacrifices to wake up Julia from the mattress is this guy who thinks he's got maggots crawling over him, so he gives the guy a knife and the guy's just slashing at himself so the blood will feed the mattress. And it's like an interesting scene. The way she comes out of the mattress is pretty cool, with the like arms and legs coming out and grabbing him.
Yeah, now I forget, did he know that like that would happen, or did like he already, or was like Julia already around and telling him to do that?
No, I think he did this on his own accord. I think he knew the mattress was what he needed because Kirsty said that. She said that to him.
She was telling him.
She's like, you got to destroy the mattress. Like she can come back. And then, but we see when the other doctor, Dr. Friendly, checks out his house, we see that he's got several puzzle boxes. He's got like drawings of Cenobites.
Oh right. Yeah.
We see that he's been studying this for a long time. He seems to have an idea what he's doing. And why he likes keeping Tiffany around.
It's a bit of a coincidence, but okay.
Yeah, it is definitely a coincidence. This is definitely the forced part of it, is like he happens to be this guy who's obsessed with all this stuff. But at least he's interested enough, and then once like he's taken in the hell, he's taken in the big basically the other puzzle looking thing, the big Leviathan or whatever it's called, the big version, and it sucks him in, and we get like these wires like cutting into his face, and he's sort of entrapped. But then later on in the movie, he comes out and he's a new Cenobite. And that's his design. He's got these wires across his face, but he looks like a Cenobite. He's got the black leather on, and it's like, oh, he has now become like this super Cenobite, and he kills all the other Cenobites. He kills Pinhead. He turns them all back into human beings and kills them. And I'm like, these scenes are actually really cool. This is a great idea. This is like someone who's obsessed with it becoming a Cenobite and then trying to change the rules. That core idea I actually really like. I also really like the core idea of Julia's back and she fails, and then the final scene, the final battle, Kirsty actually tricks the Cenobite, the doctor, Chenard, by wearing Julia's skin. And she rips it off. It's like she does the disgusting thing that happened to her in the first movie to win in the second movie. I like that idea. These are all fine ideas. I think my problem is just that the back like 40 minutes, there's a lot of just like, and now they're here in this scene because this is where we need to be now. It doesn't flow very well for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of running around, and like it's trying to think of like how to describe it. Like the hell or wherever they are, it's not really like that interesting. Like it's like all the creatures and the Cenobites and stuff are really interesting looking, but hell, it's just kind of like drab hallways. Like except for when they, at times when they get into like the big open spaces of it, like, I mean, even that doesn't really look that interesting again, except for like, seeing like, the big creatures flying and shit. Yeah. But like
the big like Leviathan like puzzle thing in the sky, like that's like a sort of open, just like cliff face essentially. And it's like this, kind of dodgy 80s effect of it being there. The other rooms we see are basically just like, one hallway will just take them to this furnace room where Frank is. Because one of the things is, Kirsty wants to get into hell to try and find her father because she's having these dreams of like her father writing on the wall, "I'm in hell, help me." But it turns out it was actually Frank who was leaving that message to trick her into coming. And this guy's creepy. He like basically says, "Hey, do you want to have fun, Kirsty?" And he's got up and he's like, "Do you want to have fun with your Uncle Frank?" And I'm like, this is creepy as shit. But then Julia kills him, and it's like, no. Like now I'm like the one in charge. I'm the one who's getting out of here.
Which yeah, I liked all that stuff because it's nice to see Frank come back, and then but I do like the idea of like, he was kind of the big bad in the first movie, and I like that he doesn't really seem as powerful in this one, and I like that he was being used, or he was using Julia in the first movie, and I like kind of her pulling a fast one on him, and being like, oh no, now I'm the one using you.
It's another example of it. Everything conceptually it's doing in the movie I actually quite like. I think the first movie is such a well-paced movie that just goes from beat to beat, and everything like follows and makes sense, and is exciting as it's happening and unfolding.
Yeah.
The back half of this movie, it kind of feels like there's a lot of great ideas in here, and I like a lot of what it's doing. But ultimately, there's a lot of running around the same corridors in hell, like over and over in between the scenes. There's a lot of just moments in there that just kind of bog it down and make it not flow very well. So ultimately, I think the first movie is much, much better because I think it functions on every cylinder. It's firing off in every cylinder. Where this movie, there's some great ideas and some stuff that I really like that it's doing. But I do think, like, as much as I like that the Doctor becomes a Cenobite, and that's kind of like a new part of the mythology. Okay, humans become Cenobites. This is how they become a Cenobite. It's people who are obsessed with it that become Cenobites. I like the idea that when the Tiffany solves the puzzle and solves the box, the Cenobites all show up for the first time in the movie, like 45 minutes in, and Pinhead's like, no, we're not taking her. We don't respond to puzzle solving. We respond to desire, and she doesn't have any desire. She solves the puzzle because she's good at puzzles. She likes puzzles. She has no desire to be taken in and be punished and feel pain or anything like that. Yeah. So I like that little bits of mythology added on.
Yeah, I like though that I like that idea, but then I also like that you're still stuck in hell. Like it's not like they're like, all right, like we don't need you, go bye bye. But it's like it still feels like dangerous because it's like they're like, oh, like we are still gonna have like our fun with you, but for now, like you're run along.
Yeah, but so as much as I like the Doctor becoming a Cenobite and all the mythology we learn through that, I do think his final design, I like the wires in his face and all that. I think him having all these tentacles that can fire blades and shit.
It ends up being a little much.
It's just like, excessive. It feels excessive. Yeah. It feels like, oh, we could go bigger budget on this one, so we built this ridiculous version of a Cenobite.
Yeah, and like if you look at all the other Cenobites, like they all feel a lot more subdued, which I think is a little more aesthetically pleasing and interesting. Like Pinhead, it's basically just like, all right, he's got pins in his head and bloody nipples. like that's about it. Like that looks like they just went like a little too much with this, which I mean at least the practical aspect of it does look cool, but like it's probably could have kept it a little easier, better looking.
Yeah, just a little bit more toned down. It's a classic example to me of like the sequel has to go bigger, so they they lose some of the charm of what the first one had because they're going too over the top with it, and that's kind of what I feel. So I think between the pacing and like just the back half being kind of messy, even though the main like peaks of what the back half's doing I really like, all the getting there in between is really dull and tedious to watch, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's the highs are pretty high, and then I wouldn't say the lows are super low, but like, they are just very kind of flat, and you're basically just looking for like, all right, I just want to get to the next like, fight or set piece or whatever, but sometimes it just you get a little bit bored waiting in between.
In fact, one of my big critiques of the first half of the movie is the doctor guy who I think replaced the boyfriend, because even when he's killed fairly early on by Julia with a kiss, she basically says after it, you've got great taste in men, and I'm like, yeah, that would have worked after a boyfriend. Like it's just almost like they didn't even change that line. But like I thought he was weird just because he felt introduced out of nowhere. It felt like he seemed to care about Kirsty really quickly without any build up, and then he was killed. It was like, I don't know, it felt like a weird add-on character who was just there to like facilitate some plot, and then that was it. He was gone.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
So
well, one thing I do like about that kind of those opening parts is like when you're seeing Julia come out and she's all like bloody in skin. She's not as like what do you call it, like decomposed as we see Frank in the first movie, who's just like barely nothing when he comes back. But like I do really like these shots of like Julia without any skin, but like she's wearing like, this long white dress and like kind of going through this like, rich person's house. And it's just very haunting, like how everything she touched just leaves like a little bloody handprint on it. I just think all those visuals are really cool.
Yeah, and it's like this idea of it leaving a stain everywhere. Like there's just evidence that something from hell's been here. And I like that they bandaged her up as well. Like I almost wanted more of that in the movie. Like, because she gets her skin back like really quickly. Because I think the first time I watched this, I'm sure I thought that the main purpose of the movie was going to be that she wanted to steal Kirsty's skin. So the movie was going to be her and the doctor trying to like trap her while she's still all bandaged up like Invisible Man kind of style. Which it obviously didn't go that way at all. Like it was almost immediately they get like the box opened and we're off to hell and things get weird.
Yeah, you know what? It really feels like they crammed like two movies into one in this. Like maybe it would have been better if that was the focus of the movie, was Julia trying to get Kirsty's skin, and then but also having this doctor who's really into this stuff, and then maybe the kind of ending set piece is defeating Julia, but then also like the doctor being transformed into the Cenobite, and then that's kind of where it ends. And then maybe the third movie could have picked up with, all right, now we're actually going to explore inside hell and stuff. Like I don't know if maybe that would have been a little more effective.
Yeah, maybe,
because it really does feel like there's a very clear separation of like, all right, this is this half of the movie, and then this is this half. Which,
I agree completely. I think it makes for a very, very uneven kind of watching experience. It definitely was better than I remembered it being. I remember really not liking it when I first watched it when I was a teenager. I think now it's kind of like this is actually a pretty decent sequel. That's got a lot of sequel typical sequel problems, but there's definitely things in there to like.
And again, like you were mentioning with the. Sometimes when you're going back and revisiting a franchise, it's hard to think of the franchise as a whole. And like, a big problem with a lot of these other movies, like you said, is they just kind of notoriously take scripts that have nothing to do with Hellraiser and just throw Pinhead in it. Like, even if like this isn't maybe as great as the first one, at least they are still trying to make a Hellraiser movie. It's still embracing and exploring the mythology as opposed to just being like a cheap cash in.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't even know what to add to it, honestly. It's funny because I feel like this movie is one that you would think we'd have tons to say about, but I feel like the themes are pretty similar to the first movie, and the idea. I don't think it does much more with like the idea of like giving yourself over, because I think the first one we talked more about the motivations of Frank and the idea of like giving yourself over for pleasure, and like I think this movie doesn't really add much to that theme, really.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe like it does a little bit with obsession, like the idea of the characters who are obsessed with this stuff turn into the Cenobites, the idea that this is what you'll become, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's more an idea of like desire in this, like the desire of the doctor, the desire of Julia to come back to life, to get a new skin, even the desire of like Kirsty to go save her dad and stuff, and kind of seeing basically where that leads you to, which is hell.
I mean, because even the idea, of course, of like the scene where like Pinhead says, no, like she has no desire for what we offer. She just solved the box out of other reasons. Like I like the idea that like they still respect that this is actually something that you wanted, even if obviously most people who want it don't realize what they're in for. Like they think they want it, and obviously, oh shit, this is actually hell and punishment and torturous and awful. But at least if someone didn't actually want that to begin with and didn't have that arrogance, they would kind of respect that and stay away. Maybe there's more to play with that. There's more to do there.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. It's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but I mean, it still works for me. I do like, obviously the first one to me is kind of like a masterpiece. Like every time I revisit it, I feel like I like it more and more. And this I haven't seen this as many times as the first one, but I still like watching it. Like usually if I watch the first one, like I might not break the second one out right after, but I'm usually like, oh, I should, watch the second one sometime soon. But yeah, it's definitely faults, but I mean, on a like some technical aspects, so like I still like the music in it. I think is pretty good. Like all the practical effects I think are really great. Like the Cenobites still look cool, and like whenever there is gore stuff, like Julia without her skin looks great, and then the ending, like it is like kind of ridiculous that like you can kind of wear the skin so perfectly. I mean, I don't know if there's something else to that, but it does look cool once she's holding Tiffany over the edge and the skin kind of starts slipping off, and like that like all looks really cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's some great visuals in there. I think some of them go too far and too over the top, but like the actual practical effects, like the stuff that's not practical, really does kind of stick out as being kind of hokey.
Yeah.
Just kind of nature of the beast more than anything else.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe another problem with the movie is that Kirsty doesn't have much agency in this. Like she's just kind of thrown into it again. Like there's not really any chance for her to like make a choice, or like she's supposed to be looking for her father or try to stop Julia or whatever, but there's never really like really hard like set goals that she is defined by, kind of thing. It's just all of a sudden, like if they set up this idea that she wants to protect Tiffany because Tiffany's more innocent and like needs help, like again that could be something we could really root for her with, but it kind of just kind of stumbles into the plot again almost as opposed to really having like a drive.
Yeah, I don't know. I hate to say it, but I've never been like too crazy about her character. Like, I do feel like, maybe I would like her to, have maybe be a little more badass or have, some more agency, because it does kind of feel like she's just the screaming woman that's kind of stumbling into stuff. And, she does always win in the end, which is great, but you never get this sense of her as being like a, like Nancy from Nightmare or something, who feels like, she is kind of like overcoming these obstacles and becoming like this badass.
Well, it worked better in the first movie because
these things on.
The first movie, I think it worked better because she was introduced as being this normal girl and had a decent relationship with her father. Didn't really like her mother-in-law that much. Not mother-in-law, stepmother. And just kind of like. And the idea was that it was such a shock and out of nowhere when this stuff hit her, but it was effective because she seemed like such a normal, happy person before that. In this movie, it doesn't feel like there's enough, because obviously it has that big, fist pumping moment at the end when she pulls off the skin, right? And it's like, that was me. I was tricking you that this whole time. But it didn't feel like as like like a crowd pleasing moment as it should have done, because I don't think by that point we were really like on her side or like really rooting for Kirsty. She's just kind of there as the default protagonist, not because we really love her and care about her so much in this movie, just because we have to have a protagonist.
Yeah. And there really wasn't anyone left from the first movie, so. Exactly,
no. And as we said, the boyfriend is just kind of written out very abruptly, and it's like, I guess that actor didn't want to come back, but okay. So that's pretty much it. I
mean, there's the rotating pillar that comes in at the end, of course, but.
Oh sure, yeah. There's the final little thing where there's like two moving guys moving stuff out of the doctor's house, and this pillar comes out the mattress with like Cenobite faces like stapled to every side, and it ends on the guy from the start of the first movie. He's like, "What is your pleasure, sir?" It's that dude. It's basically just saying, he might have killed all the Cenobites, but not really. Like they're all still there, which is good for the franchise because the movies need to keep happening. We have another 5 or 6 of them to talk about eventually.
I mean, wait, am I crazy? But there's like over 10. Right?
Is there?
No.
Well, now that you've said that,
I thought there was a lot. I mean, I thought there
was like 8, but you might be right. Maybe there is like 10 now. Let me.
Who knows? It feels like they are
Hellraiser franchise. Hold on, where are we? Wait, what? These are comics. No. Where's the movies? Here we are. Hellraiser 2, Hellbound. Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, that's 3. Hellraiser Bloodline, that's 4. Hellraiser 5, Inferno, 5. Hellseeker 6. Hellraiser Deaders 7. Hellworlds 8. Revelations is 9, and then the final one, Judgment, is 10. Which, by the way, Judgment
Okay.
was last year.
Yeah.
That was 2018.
I think I watched. I don't know if I watched all of it. It was on Netflix for a while though, so I think I watched at least some of that.
And Joe's madness to me is that the one guy directed 3 of them.
Wow.
6, 7, and 8 are all the same director.
Okay, interesting.
That is madness. Absolute madness.
I mean, 3 I'm excited to talk about, but then because I think 3 not a good movie, but does have some fun bad moments. But then it's gonna get pretty painful.
Oh, and would you look at that Hellraiser Inferno from the director of Doctor Strange, Scott Derrickson.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Doctor Strange, Sinister 2. I think he did Sinister 2.
No, he didn't direct that.
I forget. Oh, okay. Well, the first Sinister.
Yes, the better of the 2 Sinisters, although it's still really bad. So, it is what it is. So I mean, I guess that's Hellbound. I did like it more than I thought I was going to from memory, but I still have a lot of caveats and faults with it. So if we're going to rate it, I just want to make that clear that there's things I like in here. There's definitely ideas in here I like. I just think it's a much messier film than the first one. Whereas the first one I think is so well structured, so well paced, so well thought out. It just moves so naturally through the movie. And it's got so many memorable effects moments and grisly moments, and it's got a really interesting plot. This one tries to add to it and does in some ways, but is just much messier. So, Tim, what are you rating Hellbound Hellraiser 2?
I feel like I like it a lot, but I feel like I'm a little bit shy of saying that I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think and I mean I think you point out some good reasons. I think the stuff that's good is really good, but then there's some just kind of maybe a little slower filler moments in between that aren't as great. So I think we can give it a 7.5. Still a really high score, but I feel that's 7 territory is I really like it versus once you start getting into the 8 territory, I feel like that's oh, I love this thing.
That's fair. I think I am going to go with a 6.5. I can't quite call it good because it's just a bit too messy, but there's definitely things in there I like, and I think it is worth watching if you like Hellraiser. Unless you understandably want it just to be a standalone movie, because I think there's an argument for that. And just
sure, yeah, it works really well as standalone.
Yeah. Do you know the budget of the first movie was $1 million? I mean, how times have changed.
Wow.
How times have changed. So there you go. That is Hellbound. So hey, we've got another sequel offer to do list, and we have a lot of them to do. We have some lingering franchises that we've been doing for about a year and a half now. We're getting close though. We're getting towards the end of those ones. So hey, that has been Hellbound Hellraiser 2. So by all means, let us know what you think of the film in the comments below, and like and subscribe, all that stuff. And if you're listening to the audio version of the show, if you could rate and review on iTunes or whatever you're listening to, it does help us out a lot, because they promote the show out and it lets new people find the show, makes the show grow bigger, and we can do bigger and better things, I guess, potentially. Yes. If you want to support us financially, you can do that at Patreon at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month, and for that $1 you'll get a bonus episode once per month that me and Tim will do just for you. Not you personally, but you as a group, you patrons, you $1 patrons. And at the $5 tier you get to also vote in a movie once per month. You've heard us talk about, this one won a vote, that's why we're doing it. That is another Patreon perk. So go have a look and see if there's anything you like, and go and have a look-see. If you want to buy a Screams After Midnight t-shirt or something, you can do that in our Spreadshirt stores. There's links in the description to both the US and the UK stores, so go have a look-see to that as well. But yeah, do you want to promote something, Timmy? Something else that you do? No, you don't want to do that?
I mean, I have some stuff coming out later this year, but I'm not sure when this will drop. But I mean, just follow me on stuff, because I'll have announcements when I have stuff ready. Yeah,
and you can follow Tim at Tim Vergilish on various platforms, and you can follow me at Wibble89 on your Twitters or Letterboxd if you want to stalk my movie watching habits. If I'm going to promote something else from MailFuzz TV, I would say check out The Ace, the Atomic Cinema Experiment. That is the Sci-Fi Movie Podcast, the sister podcast to this show, which I and Tara look at sci-fi movies, and it's just like this one. There's a bonus movie on Patreon once a month. There's similar idea. So go check it out. But that is it. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching horror movies, guys, and we will see you next time.